What do you make of that then? Japan against England in Tokyo, the match has just finished, and that's what I'm talking about in this video. My thoughts on that England performance. What are your thoughts? Comment down below, let me know. What do you make of the England performance? What do you make of the game as a whole? And where does this leave England as we look ahead to those two tests against the All Blacks? If you are looking to avoid the result, then now is your time to click off the video and come back here once you are all caught up. Also, like the video and subscribe to the channel. So, Japan 17, England 52. I should apologise as well. The dishevelled look is what you get when that game kicks off at 6:50 in the morning on a Saturday, but we are going to persevere. Do you know what? I feel like that was pretty much exactly what England would have wanted, in that they were troubled, but only for very small periods of the game, the opening 10 minutes and that period in the second half when Japan scored their 2 tries. And other than that, they were able to ride out that pressure, exert their dominance on the game and get a fairly comfortable victory whilst rotating, getting players off the bench, guys into the team, testing combinations, building experience and cohesion together, as I say, ahead of those 2 matches in New Zealand. So I think Steve Borthwick and those coaches will be pretty happy with what they've seen. I thought it was the right balance of being challenged without it being without at any point really it looking like England were going to lose the game. The problem with that is it also means how much can you draw from it, what conclusions can you take from it? Because it is one of those matches that if England don't win comfortably, they get absolutely hammered. If they do win comfortably, we're sat here probably saying what I'm saying now, in that it was decent, good job, tick in the box, but you move in without being able to take too much from it. But let me start with the opening 10 minutes, because that was the period of the game where Japan, I think, put England under the most pressure, even though they didn't score any tries, because Japan played with tempo. It reminded me of Japan 2019, actually, and that team that just wanted to play foot to the floor, 100 miles an hour, and they looked really good because they played error-free for that opening 10 minutes or so, and they stretched England, they caused England problems, and it led to England ill-discipline. It was also actually quite a good example, I think, of how errors can compound errors, if that makes sense. From the opening kickoff, Chandler Cunningham himself drops the ball backwards, so it wasn't a knock-on, but it just put England under enough pressure that when they cleared their lines, Japan had good field position, and then it was almost the next 10 minutes that Japan were having the better of the game, more of the ball, they're moving it at pace, and they were stretching England's defence. And I couldn't help but think to myself, actually, why wasn't Eddie Jones able to implement that with England in the final 3 years of his tenure? Do you remember after the 2019 World Cup, when England were ripping up their attacking game, they were starting again and they were always saying, we're going to be all right. When we get to the World Cup in 2023, we'll be all right. Our attack will be all right. Without it ever showing any signs of that. There was a lot of kicking. They didn't play with much pace. They didn't look all particularly threatening. But Eddie Jones has come straight back in with Japan. And for the first 10 minutes, their attack was lightning. They were offloading. It was error-free, really dangerous. Maybe because he's had just more time in camp with them. Possibly, because he has had more time with them than he often would have had with England. But I think that's probably just a bit of an excuse. I couldn't help but think that anyway, just to throw that in with you. But that first 10 minutes, the issue with that game plan from Japan is it's really, really hard to maintain it. And the errors started to creep in, and when they did, England had the quality and were able to capitalise on it. And I think that's kind of what we saw from England. They had to absorb that pressure. And then once they could get some field position and ball themselves, once Japan started making errors and giving away penalties, England were able to strike a lot more effectively than the Japanese were. In particular, actually, in that opening 10 minutes, England's maul defence, 2 occasions, Japan had mauls in dangerous positions. On both occasions, England were able to hold out, essentially. And going back to what the coaches will see, I think it'll be those sorts of moments that when England review this, they'll look at it and say, yeah, that's a real plus for us moving forward. But let's get on to England. There was a few interesting things. The maul defence was one of them. Another one was Marcus Smith, obviously at fly half, but often defending at 15, which I think is quite interesting for how they might use him in this setup. I think they quite like the idea of him as that sweeper around the back. George Furbank then shifting into the 10 channel in his defensive duties, a bit of detail that I think is worth keeping an eye on. And let's chat about Marcus Smith. He was the fly half. That was the headline from this England team selection. I thought he had a really good game, didn't he? I mean, he got the yellow card in the second half, and when that ended, Finn Smith came on, so it was the end of his afternoon. But you look at that for the first half. He scored a try, which was a brilliant try, throwing into the middle of the pitch from Jamie George to Lawrence. Little move round and Smith cuts through. Great try scored. He kicked the 50-22 that led to, I think, the Faye Waboso try. And then he had the cross kick, the change of direction cross kick to Henry Slade at the end of the first half. I think it was a very, very good outing from Marcus Smith. And I suppose now he's England's fly half right for this tour. I can't imagine Steve Borthwick is going to change it heading into the tests against the All Blacks. They've got a couple of weeks potentially to change things in training, but I suspect that is Marcus Smith's jersey for the time being. And I think he deserves it. I think he did a brilliant job. There are tougher tests to come, but I know there'll be plenty of people that are very, very happy to see Marcus Smith get the opportunity and take the opportunity as well. Charlie Yules. So Charlie Yules got red carded for England. At first viewing, I was thinking it was just a penalty, but then once you see the replay, it's reckless. He's in at the side, he's off his feet, he's targeting the lower limbs. It is a really poor error in judgment from Charlie Yules. And I know players have to make split-second decisions. We have seen him red carded in the Ireland game at Twickenham a few years ago, didn't we, for a head-on-head challenge in the opening stages of that game. Might put his tour in jeopardy now, depending on the disciplinary procedure. I'm not sure how much longer he's going to be able to stick around on the tour, so I don't quite know what England do there. And for Charlie Yules himself, where he has part of the England setup before, had a bad injury, went to South Africa on loan with Bath, has come back to the Premiership, had a good season with Bath, got himself back into the England setup. And yeah, that's a pretty sloppy red card to be given away. But overall, as I say, positives for England. I think the likes of Furbank, Faye Waboso, Mitchell, Chandler Cunningham himself, players that have come into the team more recently, are continuing to look at ease at international level. Like Faye Waboso, given the fact that he has not been part of the setup long at all, looks completely at home, looks like an absolute game changer for England, as he is for Exeter. His ability to make metres through contact, to beat defenders is sensational. Chandler Cunningham himself displayed what he can bring. He scored the first try with a really good carry. He can get you over the gain line. He had some pretty monstering hits as well. I just think all round, England will be happy with where they are after that game. There are tougher challenges to come, and I also think if you're looking at it from an opposition point of view, if you're the All Blacks looking at this England team, I don't think you're quaking in your boots. I think that blitz defence, there are still areas that you can expose it if you can work the ball to the edge. England are still working on that and building it, which Japan maybe weren't able to do. I think a better attack like New Zealand will look at that and will see opportunities. But I think it's a really interesting series, this, for England, coming up against New Zealand. A New Zealand team with a new head coach, so there's a bit of uncertainty there. I know Scott Robertson did brilliantly with the Crusaders, but it's still a bit of a new era feel for the All Blacks and this England team, who I think are clearly in a much better place than they were even in the middle of the Six Nations. When you think back to that defeat at Murrayfield against Scotland, where England have now been able to get themselves to, is a real sign of progress, which makes these two tests against New Zealand all the more fascinating, as a really good indication of where England are. But I'll leave it there, I think. For the time being, job done. Good job, England, without being able to draw huge conclusions from this. That's my general thoughts on it. Let me know what you think in the comments section. Like the video, and do not forget, subscribe to the channel. If you hit that subscribe button, it makes a huge difference, so would really appreciate it. Nice one. I'll see you in the next one.